President Donald Trump vows an unwavering fight against terrorism at the NATO summit in Brussels. In our Music Maker segment, Malian performer Penzi. And Melania Trump covered her head at the Vatican, but not in Saudi Arabia. We'll explain why. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent McCory. This is Africa 54. Now, at least 26 people were killed and 25 wounded when gunmen attacked a group of captured Christians traveling to a monastery in southern Egypt on Friday. The health ministry and eyewitnesses said masked men opened fire after stopping the Christians traveling in a bus and other vehicles. The attack took place in Minya province, home to a sizable Christian minority. An Interior Ministry spokesman said the unidentified gunmen arrived in 3 four-wheel drive vehicles. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack, which came on the eve of the holy month of Ramadan. It followed a series of church bombings claimed by Islamic State. An Islamic State campaign of murder in north of Sinai prompted hundreds of Christians to flee in February and March. U.S. President Donald Trump says terrorism and North Korea topped the agenda for the Leaders' Summit of the Group of 7 Nations, which began Friday in Sicily, the largest Mediterranean island. Now, Trump was greeted by Italian Prime Minister Paolo Gentiloni as the summit formally opened. Ahead of the meeting, the U.S. president said the meeting would have a particular focus on the North Korea problem, while terrorism will also be a primary concern for the leaders during their 2 days of talks on the Italian island. Trump said North Korea's nuclear weapons testing and ballistic missile development present a big problem for the world's leaders. He said the problem would be solved. Trade is another major topic on the minds of Trump's counterparts. At a news conference to kick off the summit, European Council President Donald Tusk noted Trump's commitment to fighting terrorism.
I was impressed by, determination and toughness of President Trump when it comes to counterterrorism. I totally agreed with him when he said that the international community, G7, the United States, Europe, should be tough, even brutal, vis-à-vis terrorism and ISIS. President Trump was also very tough regarding North Korea, and in this very context, he can count on us.
Well, Trump is at odds with other leaders on climate change. Now, during his presidential campaign, in which he took numerous controversial stances, Trump referred to man-made global warming as a hoax. While on his first NATO summit as U.S. president, Donald Trump lectured NATO leaders for spending what he says as insufficient money on defense and said the group should be more focused on terrorism. The president's remarks came Thursday at a meeting of European leaders in Brussels, as VOA's Steve Hammond reports.
Donald Trump firmly rebuked NATO leaders to their faces on Thursday. His message: spend more on defense.
NATO members must finally contribute their fair share and meet their financial obligations. But 23 of the 28 member nations are still not paying what they should be paying and what they are supposed to be paying for their defense. This is not fair to the people and taxpayers of the United States.
It was an extraordinarily blunt message to European leaders, many of whom appeared uncomfortable with being lectured. Some smirked as the president delivered his remarks. Trump has a rocky relationship with NATO, which he once called obsolete. He's since walked back that statement, but his Thursday comments show he is still willing to criticize the defense alliance, especially on terrorism.
2% is the bare minimum for confronting today's very real and very vicious threats. If NATO countries made their full and complete contributions, then NATO would be even stronger than it is today, especially from the threat of terrorism.
This week's Manchester concert bombing is a deadly reminder of that terror threat. The attack also exposed rifts between U.S. and European intelligence officials. Britain stopped sharing intelligence about the attacks with the United States after American media published details of the investigation not yet released by London. British Prime Minister Theresa May chastised the United States for the leaks, even while insisting the overall intelligence sharing relationship remains strong.
Of course, that partnership is built on trust, and part of that trust is knowing that intelligence can be shared confidently. And I will be making clear to President Trump today that intelligence that is shared between law enforcement agencies must remain secure.
In a statement, Trump called the leaks deeply troubling and vowed he would get to the bottom of the situation. Meanwhile, across Britain Thursday, a moment of silence for the victims of the Manchester attack. And at the heavily guarded NATO meeting, there are promises from officials that they are renewing their focus on terrorism. Steve Herman, VOA News at NATO headquarters in Brussels.
Well, now for more on the NATO alliance and the U.S. role, VOA's correspondent Carla Babb joins me live from the Pentagon. Now, Carla, why is President Trump so focused on the money here?
Well, Vincent, President Donald Trump is a businessman, and so when it comes to NATO, he wants to make sure that the United States isn't getting a bad deal and that everybody is paying their fair share. It's interesting to note that 2% GDP goal that the NATO alliance wants to get to in the next decade. That goal is a lot less than what the United States is already contributing to NATO. Last year, the United States contributed 3.6% of its GDP to NATO. And so the president isn't coming and asking these other members to pay the same amount as the United States. He just wants them to pay a little more. And he pointed out that if every one of the countries had contributed that minimum 2% GDP, then NATO would have about $119 billion more dollars to put to its collective defense. That's a huge number, Vincent.
Now, Carla, the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said at the summit that NATO would officially join the counter-Islamic cooperation in Iraq and Syria, but its role would not be a combat role. What did he mean by this, and how does this change the fight on the ground?
Well, officials here at the Pentagon, Vincent, are telling me that this was more of a political statement. This is not something that's going to be changing anything on the ground too much. It's going to allow more collaboration in the future, they say. It's also going to set up this Brussels cell for counterterrorism planning. And in addition to that, though, other than a few more surveillance planes and maybe a few more trainers to train the Iraqi forces on the ground, you're not going to see that much of a difference. But the United States and other members of NATO are already heavily involved in this combat role. They do this by advising troops on the ground in Iraq and Syria, and also through their airplanes and munitions that they use to strike Islamic State targets.
Now, actually, talk about combating Islamic State. The president's trip might have overshadowed things here. How is the fight going on? And can you tell us what you learned today about another U.S. death in Syria and the reports that the coalition has killed at least 3 ISIS senior leaders?
Well, there are these reports coming out that the fight is steadily progressing. I'd say in Mosul, the Iraqi forces have about 90% of that city taken from Islamic State. In Syria, the local Syrians continue to surround Raqqa. This is not without casualties, although we did just hear that death by the death of a U.S. service member was a non-combat related death. That happened when a vehicle rolled over while he was advising in Syria. But we are hearing all the time about new senior Islamic State leaders being killed. As you said, in the last month, 3 were killed. I was told one, a French-Algerian national, trained an Islamic State youth group called Cubs of the Caliphate. Another was from Turkey, and he was linked to facilitating financial support for attacks against Western countries. And a third was in Anbar province, and he was considered the aerial drone coordinator there.
Well, Carla, as always, thank you. Excellent reporting. Thank you very much. That's VOA's Pentagon correspondent, Carla Babb, coming to us live from the Pentagon. Now, a key innovation since the 2011 famine in Somalia is the growing use of cash assistance programs for people affected by current drought-induced crisis. The mobile money transfers enhance accountability, sidestep security challenges, and enable recipients, many of whom are displaced, to get help no matter where they go. Mohammed Yusuf has the story from Baidoa in Somalia.
Abdurrahman Ali is buying weekly food for his family, displaced when his crops failed and livestock died. Ali is one of thousands of beneficiaries in Baidoa of cash relief initiatives provided by international NGOs.
When the cash transfer started, we were in debt at the shops. We've used the money to pay the debts and buy more food items. The money we get is not enough, so we look for part-time odd jobs, which are not available every day.
The father of 6 receives $70 every month on his phone. Aid agencies say distributing the funds directly to beneficiaries via mobile money transfers reduces the chances of fraud and corruption. Giving out cash instead of food has saved lives, says Qasim Mohammed of the Norwegian Refugee Council.
We were able to reach 6,000 families in Bai and Bakul regions, especially here in Baidoa town. Our biggest plan is to help these people with life-saving projects, like giving them unconditional cash transfer so that the money can reach them quickly and save lives.
Aid agencies say government checkpoints and threats from Al-Shabaab and other armed groups make food aid hard to deliver, forcing them to rethink ways to help.
One of the big changes this year in terms of programming is using a cash-based approach, which is providing people with cash at a household level so they can choose the commodities that they want to buy that meet their family's needs. The market operates in Somalia, so the food and goods are available, and it brings back some dignity and decision-making to the household rather than being a passive recipient of humanitarian assistance.
When famine struck in 2011, Al-Shabaab controlled much of central and southern Somalia. Aid agencies couldn't access people in need, and 250,000 people died.
Food distribution at the centers was not good. You were forced to stand in long queues, which was hard for the elderly and disabled. Sometimes people were terrorized by gangs attacking us with weapons. We prefer money. It's easy to receive money through your phone and send it to people back at the village and farm.
The drought has displaced more than 600,000 people in Somalia. Aid agencies say 1 million people in the country are cut off from assistance because of security threats. Mohammed Yusuf for VOA News, Baidoa, Somalia.
Well, the Ugandan government is locked in a dispute with the tribe from the eastern part of the country after a state official threatened to ban the tribe's cultural, rather centuries-old tradition or rite of passage. Halima Athumani reports from Kampala.
An event organized by the Bagisu tribe of eastern Uganda ended in arrests outside Kampala.
We are only fighting for our existence, for our heritage. So if we say
The Bagisu held the protest dance May 19th after Uganda's State Minister for Gender, Peace Mutuzo, proposed a ban on their traditional male circumcision ceremony, saying it is unsafe and promotes promiscuity.
I would wish to caution the people of Mbali to stop or reduce the dehumanizing habits of circumcision, which are invoking the spirit of sexuality at an early age. The Imbalu culture is really a backward one.
The Imbalu circumcision dance, commonly known as the Kadodi due to its unique sounding drum, is used by the Bagisu each even year from August to December to initiate boys into manhood.
we have the right to stand and defend or preserve our culture as Bamasaba. Bamasaba, as Imbalu or circumcision, it did not begin in the Museveni's regime. It began a long time ago, even before colonialists came in this country.
Since 2010, the government and international partners have been promoting safe male circumcision in hospitals as a measure to prevent the spread of HIV, the virus that causes AIDS. Members of parliament from Bugisuland say it's important the right take place in the community. They say proper safety precautions are taken.
Its major motive was an initiation into manhood. one would not be expected actually to participate in any meeting convened by elders unless you had had a qualification. That would be a benchmark of having qualified to sit among men. And one would not even be allowed to marry, unless you have actually been ushered into manhood through this cultural initiation.
Uganda is home to 56 tribes, each trying to preserve its unique traditions. The Bagisu appear to have won this round. Tribal leaders and the government minister tell VOA they have resolved their differences through dialogue. Halima Athmani for VOA News, Kampala.
Well, in business news, U.S. markets open mixed in front of the long holiday weekend as Americans observe Memorial Day on Monday. With more details, here is Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reporting from the NASDAQ market side.
U.S. equity markets opened mixed following a stellar week of gains as major averages closed 6 straight days higher on Thursday as the S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite closed at new record highs. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was not far behind its best all-time levels. Now, what's incredible here is we recovered the steep losses the market was shocked with on Wednesday, May 17th. Recall that volatility was attributed to the chaos in President Trump's administration, particularly with the Russia investigation. Since then, with Trump out of the country on his first overseas tour, we actually paired those losses and added gains to it. Part of the rally can also be contributed to improving corporate earnings. The tech sector remains the leader with NASDAQ up over 15% year-to-date, nearly doubling the S&P 500. Powerhouse Amazon, Google, Netflix all trading at record highs yesterday, along with 52-week highs for various chip-related names. Earnings season is about 95% over, and it's been quite a season. Companies in the S&P posted average earnings per share of 15.4% and average revenue growth of about 8.5%, according to CFRA. Now, for the second quarter, Wall Street consensus estimate is about 6.5% on the earnings side and 5.7% on the revenue side of the ledger. 10 of 11 sectors saw year-over-year gains, and 73% of companies beat estimates. The biggest market drag, if you can call anything a drag on the broader market, was energy, with oil falling over 5% as OPEC delivered in line with expectations for a 9-month extension to production cuts. OPEC agreed is expected to prolong its production cutback by 9 months at the Vienna meeting. Now, turning to the trading week ahead, Thursday kicks off the start of June, and I think it could be an interesting month. The June 14th FOMC meeting, where markets are looking for another rate hike, is just 2 days before June options expiration, which is a quad-witching expiration. In addition, the S&P and Russell indices will rebalance at the close of Friday, so it could make for some very interesting high-volume trading. From the NASDAQ market site, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
Thanks a lot, Jill. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends also. Check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Coming up, a new music video from Malian performer Pansy. Stay with us.
I'm Jeff Selden, and I work the National Security Beat. National Security Beat is anything that affects the national security of the United States, from counterterrorism to surveillance to even relations with Russia. It's one of the most fascinating beats you can have. It's probably one of the more important beats that you can cover because it touches on so many areas of the world, so many areas of people's day-to-day lives. I'm Jeff Selden, and my beat is national security.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, it's time for Music Makers Friday, and today we introduce Penzi. He's a hip-hop star from Mali. To tell us a bit more about the artist and his music, I'm joined by VOA RM Music Show host, Roger Muntu. Roger, welcome once again.
Hey, guys, how you doing?
I'm fine.
It's always good being here.
Yeah, you know, first, I haven't heard of this guy.
Yeah.
It looks
it's
like
the first time you heard about him, right?
Yeah, pretty freshly minted out of Mali.
Well, let me tell you, he's been in the industry for a while.
Yeah.
He's been in the rap scene, rap business in Mali for a while. And as we all know, rap is big in Africa as well, especially in the Francophone countries. Yeah. Senegal is one of the biggest rapper, if I should say, production.
Yeah.
But so many rappers in Senegal, so many rappers in Abidjan. In Mali, it was not a big thing.
Because they have their own kind of
traditional music. And you know, Malian music is rich.
It's really
rich.
It's
amazing with the Ngoni, with all the instruments they have. So the rap was
kind
not
of a new thing.
Right.
But this guy is good.
This guy is good.
Now, the song that we're about to watch, I couldn't pronounce the name.
Yeah. It's Audebe Sanfe.
Audebe Sanfe.
Yeah, Audebe Sanfe. And you're going to be surprised. We'll talk about it when we get back.
Let's
Audebe Sanfe.
Audebe Sanfe. Let's watch this.
Malira Puchigame, Malira Pusek, Kumata Makumuda, don't yet a segena, Kumata Makumuda, Umalira Putagane, Kumata Makumuda, don't yet a segena, Kumata Makumuda, Umalira Putamolini, Kumata Makumuda, don't yet a segena, Kumata Makumuda, Umalira Putagane, Angarapu de Befela. Wabede be aune kakola, jama bebe ka wili ka juwa ka gono. Wabede be aune kakola, imuno mono katanyefe, ichoki choki katakofe. Afo pen si 5 2 G F E R, aume kata sanfe, malira bude be kata fambe, bede be ka aune lame, aune ka some ka don fambe, yeah. Kumata makumuda, don't yere segena, kumata makumuda, umalira bude tagane. Kumata makumuda, don't yere segena. Kumata makumuda, umalira bude namoleni. Minutu mekumala, olu bebe kumuna. Minutu meyelela, jugunu bebe darala. Alaka hineula, alaka hineula. Au yere segena, malira budumbe katanye. Ula wasale, ula ferele, ula tigele.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool number.
Moves you, huh?
Yeah,
definitely.
So what is this about?
So Audebe Sanfe, we were talking about how rap was not a big thing in Bamako, in Mali. What they sang in the song, and I had to talk to my Bambara friend. He's actually saying that you guys didn't think that we could actually rap in Mali. We're doing it big now. Our rap is on top right now. So that's pretty much what he's saying in the song. So don't put us down and thinking that we can't rap. That's why he's saying.
And actually, you brought this young man to your studio.
That's correct. He actually came to my studio. Humble guy, really humble person. You know, humble human being. He started music at the age of 20. And the reason why he started rapping or got into this business is because his parents got divorced, and he was really down. And his first rap that he did was about his mother.
He could express himself.
He could express, exactly. So
he's
many
doing
rappers
well. I think he's going to go places. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you so much for having
me. Man, as
Appreciate
always,
it.
great.
Thank you, Vince. Appreciate it.
Well, I want to thank Roger for yet another fantastic Music Makers Friday segment. Now, to learn more about Roger Muntu and his VOA radio show, visit Facebook and type in the keywords Roger Muntu, VOA, and you can see what time his program can be heard in your area and get more information about some of his featured artists. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. Why does Melania Trump cover her head at one event but not another? We'll be right back. Tell you more.
capacity of brain.
We are going to have to walk the talk, you know. Mine.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending now to cover or not to cover. Melania Trump wore a veil to the Vatican to meet the Pope, but no head covering a few days earlier to meet the King of Saudi Arabia, a religiously conservative country where most women cover themselves up from head to toe. Why the difference? Now, the answer is a complicated mix of personal preference, diplomatic protocol, and religious dictates. Mrs. Trump's decision to wear a black lace veil, known as mantilla, followed Vatican protocol that women who have an audience with the Pope must wear long sleeves, formal black clothing, and a veil to cover their head. In Saudi Arabia, however, the government did not request that Mrs. Trump wear a head covering. Next up, this is Romania's first humanoid DIY robot. Now, the life-size white plastic model doesn't have a name, but it can respond to voice commands. If connected to the internet, the robot can answer a variety of questions taken from Wikipedia. To make the model DIY robot, builders will need a computer, a 3D printer, materials, and the skills to assemble it, although the developer offers a list of builders in different countries. It is hoped the robot will be used in universities, help children in schools and hospitals. Now, the robot costs about 1,500 euros for the materials and designs, not including the cost of a 3D printer and high-spec computer needed to create it. Well, and finally, Star Wars is celebrating its 40th anniversary. On May 25, 1977, Star Wars opened in 32 U.S. screens, including the legendary Mann's Chinese Theater in Hollywood, California. Director George Lucas builds a brand based off a story of triumph over evil and of a hero's tragic fall and eventual redemption. The movie soon became a phenomenon and an important part of the pop culture. 4 decades later, it continued to enthrall audiences all over the world. Next up is Star Wars: The Last Jedi. The sequel picks off where The Force Awakens left off, with Ridley meeting Luke on a remote island. Some shots in the trailer also suggested Skywalker training Rey on the island. Now, The Last Jedi opens December 15, and that is what is trending, and that's our show for today. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When something loses its original shape or form, it does not look very natural or comfortable.
Bent out of shape.
Hey, did you tell Greg about my dinner party?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was invited.
Well, now he's all bent out of shape because I didn't invite him.
I'm sorry.